Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. And today we're going to be looking at something a little bit different.
Okay.
We're going to be talking about cross-dressing in the context of a husband and wife relationship.
Interesting.
Now, the draft article that we're going to be taking a look at today is titled, "How a Couple Can Have Fun with Cross-Dressing for the Husband."
Okay.
So right off the bat, we can see that we're not really looking at this from, a transgender perspective or anything like that.
Right.
This is really about how a husband and wife can have fun with cross-dressing and how it can maybe even enhance their relationship.
Yeah, and it really is fascinating to look at it from that perspective because I think, we often have these preconceived notions about cross-dressing and what it means. And this article kind of throws all that out the window and says, hey, this can actually be a really fun and intimate and playful way to connect with your partner.
Exactly. And it all starts with a why, right? Like why would a husband be interested in cross-dressing in the first place? And the article dives into some of those motivations and suggests that it goes way beyond just the clothes.
Right.
It's about exploring different facets of your identity.
Yeah.
Maybe challenging some of those traditional ideas about masculinity and really just kind of stepping outside of those boxes that society often puts us in.
I think that's a really key point because so much of what we do in life is dictated by these societal expectations. And, when it comes to gender roles and how we're supposed to express ourselves, it can feel very limiting.
Absolutely.
And so I think this idea of cross-dressing, even within the context of a, committed, loving relationship, can be a way to kind of break free from those constraints and say, you know what? I'm going to explore this part of myself that maybe I've always been curious about or that maybe I felt I had to suppress because of societal pressures.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, for some husbands, it might be about, tapping into a sense of femininity. Right.
And I think the article really highlights the importance of trust and communication in all of this, because obviously for this to be a positive and enriching experience for both partners, there needs to be that foundation of mutual respect and understanding.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't just spring this on your partner and expect them to be okay with it.
Mm.
It's got to be a conversation and it's got to be something that you both feel comfortable with.
And it's not just about the husband's desires either.
Right.
The wife's feelings and comfort level are just as important.
Right.
And so I think it's really crucial for couples to approach this with a sense of curiosity and open-mindedness and a willingness to really listen to each other and understand each other's perspectives.
Absolutely. And once you've kind of established that foundation of trust and communication,
Sure.
then you can start to think about the practical side of things. Like, okay, so where do we even begin with this? And the article suggests that starting with a wardrobe is a good place to start.
That makes sense.
It doesn't have to be a huge transformation right off the bat.
Sure.
It could be something as simple as like, a silky blouse or a skirt or even just a pair of heels.
And I love how the article emphasizes starting small, because I think that takes a lot of the pressure off.
Totally.
It doesn't have to be this big dramatic thing. It can be this gradual exploration. And I think that can make it even more fun and exciting.
Right. And it could be a shared experience too.
Yeah.
The wife can help pick out items that she thinks would look good on her husband, or they can go shopping together, which I think can be a really fun and bonding experience.
Yeah. I imagine this would be quite an adventure,
Right.
going into a lingerie store together or a women's clothing store and kind of navigating that space together.
Yeah. And the article even suggests like maybe, escalating the thrill a little bit by going shopping together in public,
Mm.
which, that takes a certain level of trust and confidence.
It definitely does, but I can see how it would also be incredibly exciting.
Right.
That feeling of being out in the world together and kind of pushing the boundaries of what's considered normal or acceptable.
Exactly. And speaking of pushing boundaries, the article doesn't shy away from the fact that there's probably going to be some awkwardness involved, especially in the beginning,
Right.
Like that first time a husband tries to put on pantyhose or walk in heels,
Yeah.
it's probably not going to be the most graceful thing in the world.
But that's part of the fun, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, I think embracing that awkwardness and being able to laugh at yourself and with each other is so important.
Totally.
And it can actually be a really bonding experience.
Right. It's like you're both in on this little secret together and you're both kind of figuring it out as you go along.
Exactly. And I think that sense of shared discovery and exploration can be incredibly powerful in a relationship.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting how the article talks about creating like a private playground at home, where the couple can really kind of let loose and explore the possibilities of cross-dressing.
Right. And it's almost like taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
You've kind of dipped your toes in the water with the wardrobe,
Uh,
and now you're saying, okay, let's really create a space where we can kind of play with this and see where it takes us.
yeah, and I love how they emphasize the playfulness of it all,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be this serious, attempt to, pass as a woman or anything like that. It's really about just having fun with it.
Right. It's about embracing the theatricality of it all.
Hmm.
Maybe the husband adopts a persona like a glamorous diva or a sassy fashionista.
Or like a rock star or something,
Exactly.
And the wife can totally get in on the act too.
Oh, absolutely.
She could be the admiring suitor or the playful tease,
Right.
or even dress up herself to kind of match the vibe,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah, it's about creating this shared fantasy world where you can kind of escape from the everyday and just be silly and have fun with each other.
And I think that's where the real intimacy can come in,
Right.
because you're both letting your guard down, you're
Yeah.
both being vulnerable, and you're both kind of stepping outside of those traditional roles that you might normally play in the relationship.
It's like you're rewriting the script of your relationship in a way.
Yeah, and it's not just about the physical transformation either. It's about the emotional and psychological shifts that can happen when you're playing with these different identities.
Right.
Like maybe the husband discovers a new sense of confidence, or the wife starts to see her husband in a whole new light.
And I think that can be really exciting for couples to kind of rediscover each other in that way.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the article doesn't just focus on the fun and games of it all.
Yeah.
They also talk about the potential for deeper emotions to surface,
Mm.
and the importance of being open and honest with each other about those feelings.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you're kind of pushing boundaries and exploring new territory in a relationship, there's always the possibility that you might uncover some things that you weren't expecting. Whether it's, insecurities or vulnerabilities or even just new desires that you weren't aware of before.
Right, and so I think it's really important to have that open line of communication where you can talk about those things without judgment.
Absolutely.
And the article suggests like maybe checking in with each other after each experience, you know?
Yeah.
Like, how are you feeling? What surprised you? What made you uncomfortable,
Right. And it's not just about processing the experience in the moment, but also about kind of reflecting on it afterwards and seeing what you can learn from it.
Right. And I think that's how you can really grow as a couple,
Hmm.
by being willing to be open and honest with each other about those deeper emotions that might come up.
Yeah, it's about using those experiences as opportunities for deeper intimacy and connection.
Exactly. And the article also touches on the idea of venturing out in public, which is obviously a much bigger step.
Yeah, that's a whole other level. I mean,
Right.
going from the private playground at home to actually being out in the world,
Yeah.
presenting yourself in this different way,
Right.
that takes a lot of courage and a lot of trust in your partner.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the article emphasizes that it's not about trying to pass as a woman or,
Yeah.
blend in seamlessly. It's really about owning the look and the experience and being confident in who you are.
Yeah, it's about making a statement about self-expression and challenging societal norms.
Uh-huh.
And I think that can be really powerful for both the husband and the wife,
All right.
to kind of stand together and say, you know what, we're not afraid to be different. We're not afraid to challenge the status quo.
And, the article suggests like maybe starting small, like
Mm.
going for a late night drive
Mhm.
or running a quick errand with the wife, acting as a supportive wing woman.
Right. And I think that support is crucial because, let's be real, you're probably going to get some stares and maybe even some comments.
Sure.
And so having your partner there by your side, being your cheerleader and your advocate can make all the difference.
So I think it's really inspiring to see couples, pushing the boundaries and trying new things and really just creating their own definition of what a happy and fulfilling relationship looks like.
Yeah, because there's no one right way to do it,
Right.
It's all about finding what works for you and your partner.
And I think that's a really empowering message.
Yeah,
Because it means that anyone can create the kind of relationship that they want,
absolutely.
as long as they're willing to put in the work
Right.
and to be open to new experiences.
Exactly.